Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, my Italian does not exist, so you have to make do with my English. I hope it comes over well. So today I'm talking about legal compliance and sustainable production and how we think it can be a competitive advantage for the textile industry. Yeah, well. Fortunately for you, you can read the Italian and I will speak the English. So, legal compliance. We are all bound by the law so that we might all be free. And that applies to society in general, to industry, consumer safety. And obviously today we're talking a lot about REACH, and that's one example. GHS, we're talking about that also. And OSHA and regulations in China, the rest of the world. There are so many rules and regulations that we all have to live by and work by in this textile industry. And it affects all the players in the textile chain. So, sustainable production. What do we mean? There's so many examples. Yvon Chouinard, who founded the Patagonia company, he made a comment, most of the damage that we cause to the planet is the result of our own ignorance. And Vivienne Westwood, very much known in the fashion business, she says, buy less, choose well, and make it last. So that's be responsible, be sustainable, look after the industry, look after resources. Yeah? It's a finite planet, we can't use oil and everything indefinitely. Sooner or later it runs out. So be efficient with resources. Minimize emissions, off-gas, wastewater, soil pollution, whatever. Yeah? Keep that under control. And if we don't do all these things properly, then global warming, which is already a problem, look, it's snowing outside today. Didn't expect snow in March in Milano. So global warming will affect us all even more. And it affects all the players in the textile supply chain. So the question is it a cost or is it a commercial advantage? Yeah. Hopefully I can persuade you by the end of this session that, yes, it is a competitive advantage, not just a cost burden. So when we think about the textile supply chain, where does it start? It starts with the chemical suppliers. If we didn't have good, responsible chemical suppliers, making nice dye stuffs, finishing chemicals and agents, then we wouldn't all be wearing these nice, wonderful clothes, we wouldn't be fashionable, there wouldn't be an industry. But the chemical suppliers, they're working in a very, very much regulated industry. It's one of the most regulated, if not the most regulated industry in the world. So if they want to be in business, they just have to comply with the regulations. That's it. But just complying with regulations really, in my opinion, our opinion, is not just enough. If they really want to be compliant, then a chemical company is well informed and can take advantage of all these changes that are happening. Yeah, the regulations are here. There will be more, they will change, they'll be adapted. And if a chemical company is alert and doing more than just the bare minimum, it will be aware of what's happening, can adapt to the changes, be ready for changes, and make better sustainable products for all of us, so that in the end, the whole industry is better. And as well as the compliance of regulations from all the authorities, the EU and the American regulations, etc., the chemical industry faces demands from all these NGOs, Greenpeace, dare I say Greenpeace here, Greenpeace, all the RSLs from the brands and retailers, the MRSLs from all the brands and retailers, and of course public opinion. If something goes wrong or the public thinks, I'm not sure whether I like these textiles anymore, it's a dirty business, isn't it? I mean, these are the things that this industry has to face all the time. And for a chemical industry to manage all this, to be compliant, to be aware of changes, be ready for changes, to respond to changing customer demands, then they need to have what we like to call product stewardship. They need effective product stewardship in place. And you're now asking yourself, well, what is product stewardship? Hopefully those chemical companies here already know what it is. And for those who don't, I'll try and give you a little reminder. And I'll also give you a little bit of vertigo. So don't get too concerned about the spiral there. I won't go into detail on that. I will spare you that. But product stewardship, it's all about the company having knowledge, data, and doing good things with good data. So it knows its raw materials. Where is a chemical supplier getting his raw materials so he can make your products? Does he control where they're coming from? Does he know what impurities there might be present? Has he specified not just the colour and the strength and the pH, but impurities? Once he's got the raw materials and he's going to make a product, going to make a wonderful dye stuff or a wonderful softener, then it has to identify and manage all the risks within that own factory. Yes, you don't want to be creating off-gas or bad pollution or harming the workers, of course not. So it needs to manage the risks. And once it's got its wonderful product, a fantastic dye stuff, there's a wonderful shade of blue, or a softener that's as soft can be, then that is a mixture, most likely, and that mixture needs to be properly classified, properly labelled, and a correct safety data sheet for that created. And of course, in Europe, that means GHS conforms to CLP, and GHS is now nearly global. It's not a global, but it's almost a global harmonized system. Yeah, the chemical supplier needs to be aware of what the rest of the world is doing. It might have to face registration of these chemical products if it's exporting in other markets, say in Korea or Japan. Things have to be registered. Needs to be aware of all the rules and regulations that are relevant in the markets where this chemical product might be sold. It's not just in Europe. Yeah, there are different rules that might apply in China, in Japan, in America, wherever. And last but not least, the chemical supplier needs to be able to answer all these customer questions. Yeah, the textile mills, because their brands are asking them, the textile mill will ask the chemical supplier, if I use your wonderful dye stuff that says it's a nice shade of blue, does it also meet all the consumer safety regulations? Does it contain this substance? Might it perhaps have formaldehyde? I don't know. Well, a chemical supplier that has got product stewardship in place does know and can say, yes, this wonderful blue dye meets all the requirements, you can use it, please use it. I need the English again. So sustainable, so that was a compliance part, but there's also sustainable production. It applies at the chemical supplier as well, of course. The chemical supplier must use their raw materials and the energy as efficiently as possible, minimize waste and byproducts. Yeah, waste is a waste of money. Recycle and reuse wherever possible. And perhaps even more relevant for the industry in general, develop new chemicals and new processes that the textile manufacturer, the dye house, the print works can use, and there they would end up making using less resources, shorter dyeing cycles, fewer rinse cycles, cooler temperature dyeing, less salt, whatever it might be, to make the processes of the textile mills also more sustainable and still meet all the requirements for the customers today and the customers tomorrow. So now move a little bit along the textile supply chain now and look and consider the textile manufacturer. What does a textile manufacturer want to do? Yeah, create textiles that are fit for purpose, the right shade of blue, the right fastness and all the rest of it, of course at a fair price, and hopefully, yes, a little bit of profit in there somewhere, so it's a sustainable business, yeah? So yeah, you want to make nice things, but you need to make a little bit of money. But the textile manufacturer also has to be compliant with national regulations, with local EHS rules and regulations, and ideally should be more than just the bare minimum. Yeah? Be aware of what's happening, know what's going on, because as well as all the legal regulations, the local licenses that might be necessary, the textile manufacturers, you are also faced with RSL requirements, MRSL requirements, campaigns from the NGOs, Greenpeace, for example. You've got neighbours. Yeah? It might be another factory, could be a housing unit. You've got to be aware of what their concerns are and all these other considerations. So it's not just, I follow this rule. No, bigger picture, be aware, be responsive, and active. And if the if the textile manufacturer wants to be sustainable as well as compliant, then he needs knowledge and application. Yeah? So you've got to consider, what chemicals am I using? Are they all REACH compliant? Have they all been registered? Have I got a safety data sheet for them all? So if I have a safety data sheet, then I know what the hazards are. If I consider that hazard is a bit too great, I don't really want to have that in my textile mill, need to start looking for alternative substitutes. If it being a sustainable textile mill, then it wants to be looking at the processes. Are the machines set at the optimal setting? Are the rinse cycles enough, but not too much? Is the temperature right? Can I find an alternative method of doing this thing that saves on all these resources? Inevitably, unfortunately, that's how it is. There might be some emissions, and will be some wastewater. There might be some off-gas. Are they being managed? Are they being measured? Do I know what's going down the drain? Do I know what's going up in the air? A sustainable company will and should and must know all this. And do I have, as a textile mill, do I have systems in place so that I know what is changing? Yeah, I'm a member of this association, so I know what rules and regulations might be changing. What are the demands that I'm going to be facing in the future? And if I've got knowledge, I can act. Without knowledge, I'm ignorant, I can't do anything. So it's my opinion, our opinion, that if a textile mill is doing this, has the good knowledge, can monitor and control the costs, is prepared for changes that are happening in the industry and the legislation, ready for new business opportunities, and that is an advantage. It's not a burden, in my opinion. And this is what the session is about today, about private standards. It's all very well a chemical supplier or a textile mill saying, yes, I'm wonderful, look, I don't do wastewater, I've got no emissions, my fabric is wonderful and clean. Yeah, can I be believed? Well, in our opinion, and that's why we're all here today, then a private standard will confirm that the company really does what it says it does. It is efficient, it is sustainable, it is compliant, and it is responsive to customer needs. And also, it provides then the textile company, the chemical supplier, also a competitive advantage. It can say, look, I'm not just telling you I'm good and wonderful. I've got this certificate from my private standard that confirms independently I am doing a good job. Buy from me. And at the end of the supply chain come the brands and the retailers. Good water in Italy. They are the most visible players in the whole textile industry. They push trends down at the market. They respond to trends back from the market. Consumers assume that the big brands and big retailers are automatically taking care of the environment, that their supply chain is clean, it's green, and it's sustainable. That's kind of assumed. When you buy something from a well-known brand, yeah, I'm buying a pair of shoes from Nike, yeah, of course it's been made cleanly, efficiently, safely. And that's not always the case. But they're also then targeted from the NGOs, again, somebody like Greenpeace, the Detox campaign, and they have to respond. And by responding to the Detox campaign, one of the things they do is then set standards. For example, the MRSLs that the textile mills have to work with and the chemical suppliers abide by. And the brand and retailers then force down the supply chain that they have to be compliant with all these things so that they, the brand and retailer, can go back to Greenpeace and say, look, my supply chain is doing what I wanted to do. It is clean and green, hopefully, maybe. But there's a big responsibility and a big pressure from brands and retailers. And if the supply chain were like this, nice and straightforward, so we'd have a chemical supplier that's got product stewardship in place, might even be a Bluesign system partner, and has got its chemical portfolio under control and has stopped supplying some products because they're not acceptable, they've got the impurities or whatever, but the good chemistry is allowed through, then the textile manufacturer, doing its job properly, using good chemistry in a proper way, produces clean textiles, minimum impact on the environment, and the brand and retailer can say, yeah, everything's wonderful, I've got it all under control. Unfortunately, 2 more minutes. Yes? No, it's okay. This slide shows that actually it's not quite as straightforward as all that. Maybe some of you have seen this already from the outdoor industry. We've got the consumer, the brands and retailers on the left, all the way through the level 1, the level 2, the level 3, the chemical suppliers, the primary chemical suppliers, and the oil and gas out of the earth. It is a big, messy, complicated business we're in. So how can a textile mill or a chemical supplier, how can they be seen and be believed? By taking advantage of the competitive advantage of being compliant and sustainable, having a message, say it loud, say it clear, and be verified by an independent private standard. For example, Bluesign. So quickly, there are many standards here, and Bluesign is one of, and there are others, and we all have our place. But a private standard should be going more than just a bare minimum, obviously be relevant, have published criteria, be transparent, be global. It's a global business we're in. Allow benchmarking, collaboration, traceability, and have tools and databases that the people in the supply chain can work to. And this is my last slide, so my 2 minutes hopefully has worked. So the system, Bluesign system, is a solution for the legal compliance and increased sustainable performance for responsibly produced textiles without compromises. No compromise on quality, no compromise on design or performance. And by that, you have a competitive advantage. Thank you for your time.